the way history turns. It's been demanded that I be a leader, and so I am into the fray. Cry havoc and turn loose the dogs of the info war. I am on. I'm going to be speaking across the U.S. I'm going to be driving across the U.S. I'm going to be facing the Federal Reserve down. I am not going to let the bankers bring in a bunch of phony collectivists to sell austerity with a bunch of commies dancing around. It's not even communism. It's banker-induced fraud. And a man who, I keep saying this guest predicted, that guest predicted, Tarpley and the Obama deception 3 years ago, total precision. That Libya would be invaded, African, Obama, total war, banker bailouts, takeovers, austerity, imploding Europe, into the euro, new global superbank. Because he's reading their own documents. He is a scholar. A cogitator who pores over the text of the globalist, a doctor of history, an economist, a best-selling author, an accomplished man who really is a great addition to our cadre against tyranny. And I'm here to tell you that he last Wednesday spurred me, because I've been sitting there for about a week and a half. Well, I know there's George Soros people here, and I know they've got this big push of the 1% by the big oligarchs to then tax with VAT and sales tax, and they've got all the neocon hosts promoting it as well to pay what we quote owe. It'll just put the country into cardiac arrest. We don't owe this. They got Beck promoting the VAT taxes and the sales taxes. O'Reilly, the list goes on and on. Hannity, all of them. Herman Cain, Neil Warts, all of them. This cold-bloodedly in there hitting us hard. And Tarpley exposed it. But now the Democratic Party admits they're running it, all of it. But I've got reporters all over the country. They say that the people there actually are aware of the New World Order, the oligarchs. They don't want the bailouts. They understand what's happening. But the media, Webster, the dominant corporate whore media that's starting to die but still hanging on, still able to put a hoax out. Tarpley, as you know, they're only giving attention to weird foundation, fake, collectivoid creatures. What's going on here in the grand stratagem? Because they are saying this is the revolution. Well, if it's a George Soros color revolution, I'm not going to be part of it.
Quite right, Alex. What we're seeing is the dynamic of the mass strike, a sociological process that we've been aware of for 100, 150 years. It simply means that under conditions of economic breakdown and severe depression, which is what we now have, there will be forms of mass resistance. And we saw this in the Tea Party in a certain form at the beginning. It was a kind of a spontaneous protest against the horrors of Obamaism. We've seen it again now in a much more advanced form in Wisconsin back in February, in Ohio, and some degree in Michigan also, but mainly the Wisconsin general strike at the level of a state against this fascist governor and his union-busting plan. But now we're seeing it on an even broader level. And of course, we've seen it overseas. We can talk about some of these models in just a minute. The problem with the mass strike, though, is it doesn't solve anything. It's an opportunity, but it's not a solution. And the question then is always, who will provide program, leadership, organization? Who will give this a direction? Who will propose the measures that are needed? Because unfortunately, after being stupefied for a number of decades, people themselves they're not able to come up with. And
by the way, it's now admitted Soros gave $5 million. He's running the co-opting of the entire deal, and his answer is raise the middle class and poor people's taxes to pay it all in banker bailouts to Warren Buffett. I mean, it's classic.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, he wants to take control of it. If you look at the Tea Party, what happened to the Tea Party was the Koch brothers moved in, the Freedom Works moved in, Heartland Institute moved in, a whole bunch of these right-wing reactionary think tanks moved in, and they domesticated the Tea Party till it became the right wing of the Republican election campaign. Similarly, today, when we look at, there are two things going on, right? One is Occupy Wall Street in New York. There's going to be one here in Washington called October 2011.
No. The mainstream media got behind it. It's everywhere. It's Austin. It's Dallas. It's San Antonio.
The people that are actually behind this, because these things present themselves as leaderless groups, but unfortunately they're not. In New York, the substructure of this is essentially the Soros group of foundations, the SEIU, and Acorn. So that's the left wing of the Obama campaign. Here in Washington, D.C., we have David Swanson and Kevin Zeese. These are two bitter enemies of 9/11 truth left over from the effort by the foundations to keep the 9/11 movement and the peace movement separate in previous years. So there's a very heavy degree of misleadership. Plus, Plus, there are just a lot of left liberal mushheads running around, people who are trying to promote themselves. You see Michael Moore moving in. Now, a couple of things about what your previous guest was saying. The program is what counts, but the program of saying down with, Mr. X, down with some person, this is absolutely futile and pointless, and I'm really sorry.
We need to say abolish the Fed, restore free credit of the government to the population to turbocharge, and we're out of the Depression.
Well, I would think this is a complex society, so you need something more than that. But again, let's look, just because people are constantly citing this Arab Spring. Egypt is a failure. They got rid of Mubarak, but they're worse off now than they were. Tunis is also a failure because they got rid of Ben Ali, and now they
Well, that's the thing. It's confirmed that the West knew there was about to be a rebellion because of commodity prices.
Yeah,
so they just came in and triggered it. Same thing's happening here.
Yeah. At Greece, you look at Greece. In Greece, they've had 12 general strikes. They can't even get rid of Papandreou, the main IMF and NATO agent. And Spain, this is the most pathetic. Spain, we have the Indignados. So they go into the square in Madrid and they stay there. They got absolutely nothing. They couldn't even get rid of Zapatero. They couldn't. They accomplished absolute zero. But the Indignados are the ones that the kids in New York say that they're imitating. And what they're imitating is this process of general assemblies, this group think, where they say, oh, we do everything by consensus. This is a straitjacket, which means they never do anything. They deliberate for 2 hours about what to order for lunch, but they're totally incapable of putting forward a single programmatic demand.
Well, no. They put you into the process itself led by saboteurs. The CIA, as you know, Webster, wrote handbooks on this.
Exactly. And I would also point to the Albert Einstein Institute and Gene Sharp of Cambridge, Massachusetts, who have also...
Well, here's the deal, Webster. I want to have you on the Nightly News tonight, if you can do it, so you can really put all this forward. I'm going to give you the floor for a few more minutes here. But obviously, we need to do a Skype interview.
Certainly. Glad to do it anytime.
Because I want you to be able to show the articles, show the faces... send us any quick email of any faces or articles you want us to show. We got to turn it around pretty quick to get the stuff together for the interview tonight, 7 o'clock. But what's their... Listen, what do you think of my idea, and I mean, we're launching it, to go and demonstrate directly at the Federal Reserve, directly at the oligarch command base?
I think it's a fine idea, and I applaud the idea that you want to get your followers, get your audience mobilized, because I'm trying to do that on my own radio show, World Crisis Radio, because it's the time now to intervene in these things. But intervene means you go in with a sense of program and orientation that a lot of these people don't have. I would propose a couple of points, right? You look at the students, because these are mostly recent college students. I get the impression the people in New York they're so young that they were not around to be duped by Obama, or they just caught on with the tail end of Obamaism. One of the things that brings them together is they're all crushed by student loan debt. They have 50, 75, 100, 150,000 of student loan debt at very high interest rates. Now, this is going to crush the future of the United States. So one very obvious demand that I would lead with in terms of intervening in Wall Street and similar groups there, a full amnesty on student loan debt. This is about $1 trillion. Some of it's insured by the government, by Sallie Mae, but some of it's not. I think.
Well, by the way, I don't want to hear this as socialism or something, because here's the deal. We gave $16.6 trillion to foreign banks and then some. And then the conservatives always tell me how great this is. My point is they've destroyed our economy. Like Ron Paul has said, you can't get rid of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid right away. You've got to phase it into new systems. The globalists want to just cut everything off now and then pile all their fake debt on us. That's like shooting a person in cardiac arrest 8 times in the head with a shotgun. We've got to jumpstart things now.
Yeah, so, again, the twin demands that I think would be a leading edge of this is for the people in the Wall Street demonstration that you see, student loan amnesty, freeze it. You can cancel it, you can freeze it. You can freeze it for 5 or 10 years or for the duration of the World Economic Depression, whichever lasts longer, and make that into a political question later on. But this is crazy what's being done. There used to be the National Defense Education Act. You could go to college without coming out with this crushing burden. If you want to know how to pay for these things, it's the Wall Street sales tax. It's the 1% tax on Wall Street sales and turnover, especially derivatives. There's buying and selling 3.3 quadrillion of derivatives per year. That's the turnover. quadrillion of derivatives in existence at any given time, but they're constantly buying and selling them. So basically every derivative turns over at least one time per year. A 1% tax on that, well, if you do the arithmetic, you get into trillions of dollars of income for the federal government. Another thing for the idea, when you talk to a group of these students, you got to say, look, you got to bring in new groups. You can't just be a student rebellion. That has no hope. You got to bring in the broad middle class. What's their problem? Foreclosures. We know that Bank of America has robo-cops, robo-judges, robo-signers, and robo-foreclosures. They're stealing the homes of people who never had a
Well,
mortgage.
Webster, we've got to end it here, but you're back on tonight for about 10, 15 minutes. I'll give you the floor then to A, go over who's behind the fake revolution, and then B, your ideas for solutions. But absolutely, there are occupations going on at Bank of America who does steal homes, and the media is giving it almost no attention. Again, notice they're giving mushhead communist attention to then scare mainline Americans away to run to Wall Street. Well, my gosh, I don't like Wall Street, but if commies are coming, I better join with the bankers. And meanwhile, the bankers are the ones funding the people to make the stupid communist statements.
Right, and you can see also one of the leading figures of the thing that's going to come together here in Washington on Thursday, and they claim they're going to go on, open-ended too. Van Jones. Van Jones was a czar in the Obama White House, right? This is the guy he signed some 9/11 document, right, at some point in his life, and they had,
that was a Cass Sunstein setup, too. I've looked at that. That whole thing was a setup.
But it couldn't be clearer. The Obama re-election strategy presupposes a left-wing version of the Tea Party, where you get a bunch of people out protesting, you co-opt them, you round them up, you keep them vague, you keep them impotent, you keep them disorganized, and then you basically say, well, they're out there demanding freedom and equality and justice, and that's Obama in 2012. That's what they want.
Webster, we're out of time. Tonight, 7 o'clock.
I'll be there.
InfoWars Nightly News. Well, let me put you on hold so Jaron can... And so Duke can line up exactly when we're going to do that interview. I might do it live, but you'll probably want to do it taped. So, because I want to just lay out exactly what's behind it, what their strategy is. This is the birth of the left-leaning Tea Party that calls for communism to steal the money from old ladies and freeze colas and Social Security and pay it to George Soros. So that's all coming up tonight, 7 o'clock. Look, I never even got to this article today. Can you document, Cam, shot this? This is the type of treason I'm talking about, folks. Daily Mail. Cameron defies EU referendum push and insists, I think we should stay in. England has been put in this, never being allowed to vote. And now the euro is saying they'll pay unlimited trillions to foreign banks. It's an economic dictatorship. And this demon, David Cameron, will not let the Brits even have a vote. You know why? Because it's 80+% in every poll, 87, 82, depending on the poll. It's in the 80s. I mean, this is dictatorship. And he's like, I'm a traitor. I'm handing England over to this. Same thing's happening in Europe. They don't even say it's for the poor people there or communism. They say, we're going to have total implosion of everything if you don't pay everything you got to the bankers. And the military standing by to knock your teeth out. And democracy in Germany's bad. On and on and on. This is what you're hearing. The bankers think you're idiots, man. Wake up to them. Now I'm going to do 5 minutes into overdrive. Only got a minute left here. Gold has exploded up. Silver is up as well. We told you they keep raising the margin on gold so you can't speculate. That's good, as Ted said a week and a half ago when this started. This only knocks out speculators where they can't do this anymore. We want gold to be in a real market. Ted Anderson, tell folks briefly what's happening. I got 1 minute here before the show ends. And tell them the specials and the toll-free number to call and take advantage of the low prices before it goes back to its old high.
Well, right now, I mean, obviously the players are gone that we're speculating. Right now, one of the really good things we have is the campaign for Liberty Proof is at 484. That'll be jumping up closer to 500 again. The silver dollar deal for $73 delivered with the two videos, or the video and the book. There's just a lot of things that are going on. I mean, gold hit a high today of $1,665.70. Silver hit a high today of $31.47. It's coming back without the 800-686-2237. We'll be right back. Stay with us.